I ain't know if we'll make it this one.
Yeah.
Main Street here until
I was ill. First regular season game, I couldn't make it.
Oh, wow.
I gave tickets to somebody else. But, yeah, I've got another game to go to first week in November.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. That's Vegas Golden Knights in Campus. Well, I flights to Golden Knights. Yeah.
Are you flying out
Caps
there?
are
Okay.
home. We're going to go see one in Las Vegas. Won't be till later.
Now you see the Raiders.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting we're calling a joint briefing of all city-appointed committees. And what we're asking to do tonight is really review City Cleanup Week, which has been something that has been in our future or vision cast meetings now for years, where we've discussed the future of this service that the community loves, but also is becoming something that is unsustainable for us to continue into the future. So we have a limited amount of time tonight to talk about it. We have about 45 minutes, so we want to be brief. I want to ask Director Mears to come up, who has walked us through this a couple of times. So what we're going to do tonight, Council, so you know, Director Mears is going to walk us through some options first. And then I'm going to call up Mike Parkowski with the Delaware Solid Waste to share a few things, and then we'll have some discussion among all of us about where we see what questions you have, what concerns you have. We will not be making a decision on this tonight. This is just a conversation to start, and then we will come back at a future date to go through it again. Okay, so Director Mears, I'll let you walk through this.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So as the mayor said, this is, you guys have seen this back during the planning session. I was asked to look into a citywide trash service. While looking into that, we found out that they offer some other services within that service as far as yard waste pickup and cleanup week. So I'm going to try to tie it all together. Since you have seen it before, I won't hit on every point, but I will try to hit the most pertinent stuff. So a citywide contractual trash service, all residential properties would have trash service. It would also include recycling bi-weekly. Residential properties would have yard waste pickup, much different than what we offer now, but it would be included in the service. And then all residential properties are allowed one oversized item per week, such as a mattress one week, box spring the next week, sofa the next week. So we envision that could replace cleanup. We think that, you know, this alternative could provide a cost reduction to the residents depending on bids. We would have to bid this service out, you know, so we would hope that we would get the lowest possible price based on the quantity, you know, of all the services that, all the residential services that they would be picking up from. So the citywide service for residential customers would also reduce truck traffic. We have a lot of problems with a lot of different vendors coming in, different vendors every week, you know, tearing up our alleys that are not made for heavy trucks such as trash trucks. So this could potentially reduce the wear and tear on our roads as well. Commercial and industrial customers would not change. So I reached out to Georgetown and Laurel. Both of them provide current trash services. They went out to bid. Again, trash service is collected weekly. Recycling is bi-weekly. Yard waste, they both do it a little differently. One has a schedule. They'll do it once a week. Another one does it once, where is it? Yard waste is placed at the curb, and it is once a week as well. So these numbers might be a little old because it was back in the beginning of the year, but right now Georgetown is charging $68 per quarter, which is about $22.67 a month. Their current contract is with GFL for $20.46 per month. The town is profiting, marked it up, profiting $2.21 per service per month. So there's a little bit of revenue in there, but I don't think that that's, you know, we're not necessarily looking at this for a revenue generator. This is more, we're going to reap the benefits of manpower and some other things from this service. Laurel's pretty similar. They're charging $33 a month. I couldn't back calculate what they're making off of it. All I could find is that they're looking to make $135,000 of revenue based on their budget that was online. So this is basically just a schedule that they provide, which is nice. They break it down in yard waste, days of trash, days of recycling. So the customer would know, what days they can put out different things. We can change this, if we wanted yard waste more often, we could probably negotiate some of that. It's all on what you write in your bid and how you spec your bid. So leaf and limb pickup, these are just the requirements of Seaford's leaf and limb requirements based on Laurel's. Very similar. Right now we're 15-gallon bag or smaller. Bags must weigh less than 40 pounds. No, we don't weigh them before we pick them up, but we guesstimate, and we pick up much heavier bags than that. So limbs are cut to 6-inch length, 4 inches around, parallel to the curb. No building materials, dirt, that kind of stuff. That's not what we're doing right now. So, that's what our requirements are. Through the years, things have just kind of developed, and we pick up much more, much larger items, which I have some pictures and I'll show you. So I just wanted to break down our manpower in, just for our yard waste services. So basically leaf and limb, we call it leaf and limb. So a small pile in bags, everyone knows the little flatbed, that's out there every day. It's one little dump truck, one man, 5 days a week, it's 40 hours. Well, the issue which takes up a lot of our resources and manpower is our big piles. Everyone's seen the big piles out there. They're unsightly, and they're a lot larger than I think this service was intended. So that requires one backhoe, 2 to 3 dump trucks, 3 to 4 men out of a 7-man department. I'm not including Lisa or myself because we're typically not out there. She is. I'm typically not out there with a shovel in my hand or doing the manual labor. So if you do 1 to 2 days a week during the heavy times, it's 64 hours, 64 man hours to pick up big piles, 40 man hours to do the small piles, bags, little things you can pick up with a pitchfork. So you got 104 man hours spent out of a 280 man hour week for the 7 available department positions. So that's 37% of our time is spent just picking up leaf and limbs. So then the need, this kind of varies, but I have in there that the need is from March to December, but it changes depending on the season and the weather. So, and then the leaf machine starts October 1st. We don't usually get out there till November. It goes to the end of December. That requires 2 men, a dump truck, and a leaf machine. That's an additional 80 hours. So, you're talking 184 hours. 184 hours out of 280 hours. So that's 66% of our time. Are we out there every week, spending 184 hours a week? No. Not October 1st through December 1st. But I'm just giving you the total of what we need to dedicate to these services if we want to provide them. And there are times that we have to do this. So the whole department man-hour perspective, we're currently operating a 280-hour man-hour week, like I said, 7 employees, 5 days a week, up to 140 hours in leaf and limb. I'll have an on-call operator, which does the water samples, checks all the pumps, all that stuff on a daily basis, responds to disconnects, reconnects, all that kind of stuff. So that's, you dedicate 40 hours, and I'm talking Monday through Friday here, not the weekends. So if we want to keep the sweeper out every day, that's another 40 hours. So that's 144 man hours just in the street department. So 144, and then you put the on-call operator back in there. You have 184 man hours just for the street department and the on-call operator. So this leaves only 96 man hours a week to operate and maintain the water system, the sewer system, any other street maintenance item, signs, potholes, anything like that. So this equates to basically 2.2 employees for a 5-day work week. So I have a little over 2 employees a week for 5 days to do all the other tasks that we have. Everyone loves this service. This is a great service, but there's many more important things, honestly, that we have to take care of as far as the water and sewer department. aging infrastructure, a lot of moving parts, a lot of equipment, a lot of things we need to maintain. We have shifted, or in the process of shifting the lift station maintenance to wastewater, so that is helping. I just want to put that out there. So these are typical big piles currently. You know, these are things that we wait on for Friday, Thursday, Friday, depending on the load. We go out with the backhoe. You know, so like this pile right here on the left, that could be 2 dump truck loads. You know, we got a dump truck, 2 dump trucks running down to the leaf and limb area, coming back. You know, wear and tear on our sheets, wear and tear on our equipment, just to pick up these piles. I don't think the service was meant for that. I don't think that's originally what this was for. I think the service was for this. You know, I think the service was for if you have a few branches laying low, you want to cut them, you want to maintain what you have. You know, you have some branches fall down in a wind, you want to pick up sticks in your yard. I think this is what I envision it for. You know, bags, you got some bags, you cut your grass clippings, you cut your bushes, prune your bushes, you put them in bags, rake your leaves. This is what I see this service is for.
Good job, Frank.
You know, it's not for cutting down whole trees. It's not for contractors coming in and cutting down whole trees. It's not for landscapers doing your yard. It's not for, you know, whole big trees. It's not for you to pull out all your bushes and set them at the curb. You know, it's not, you know, I don't think that's what it's for. This is what we get. You know, we have maintained this through the years, spent a lot of money maintaining this. It does look a lot better than this right now. This is the worst of the worst, just for effect, you know. So cleanup week, we spend about $20,000, we budget. We typically collect over 250 tons of trash. I mean, it's a lot of trash. We've been doing that forever, since as long as I've been doing it, and well before that. So it's roughly about 600 man hours to do that. That from all departments. All departments chip in. We couldn't do it without all the departments. It puts a burden on all the other departments. You know, yeah, they like to get out there and do it, but really it sets the departments back when they're out there doing it. So we have numerous locations where items are brought into the city. There's no way to really police it unless you're standing right there when they do it, which is not typical. Unsightly piles, unwanted people rummaging through the piles, creating by the current way we manage this. With the trash vendor collecting weekly bulk items, there would not be a need for cleanup week, as we know it now. That's a good picture right there. That's a good picture. So this is some of the stuff you see. I mean, 4 toilets in a two bath house. You know, 16 mattresses at a 2-bedroom house, 4 couches and a 1 living room house. A lot of, you know, household trash, you know. So we come up to this pile with household trash. We're not supposed to pick it up. It's not what the service is for. But what do? You know, do you leave it there for it to rot and stink? And, you know, we'll tell them, hey, if it's a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, something, we might tell them, hey, get rid of it. If it's still there by Friday before we get rid of the dumpsters, or Monday, we'll go ahead and pick it up. So, and I think people know that. But we do that just to get it off the city streets. So I have some discussion points as far as a few things. As far as the trash service, all residential properties would have trash service. Leaf and limb would be completed by the vendor. It would be like hiring 2.3 more employees, 104 man hours for the department to do the needed tasks. So just by having the trash service, it potentially would free up to 2.3 more employees to do other things. Less leaf and limb sitting at the curb. Eliminate the need to maintain the disposal area. Bulk items would be picked up by the trash vendor. Possible elimination of cleanup week, which would provide us with more man hours. No large piles sitting at the curb. No trash brought in from other towns, and additional revenue. You told me not to do that. So what was it again? So we have, there are some other alternatives. It's not all just, a trash company's not the save-all here, because there's a lot of other things that go along with, having a trash leak. So, we could potentially just change cleanup week to do, we can do it different ways. There's different options. We've talked about a lot of different ones. We've talked about potentially just having dumpsters down at our site and residents bringing it to us. How many times a year, I'm not sure, once a year, twice a year, it's all open for discussion. That could be a little bit hard for logistics and managing. We talked about having a quarterly, semi-annually, don't know yet, system where people just call in and say, hey, I have something I want you to pick up. We check to make sure that all their bills are paid, and we put it on a work order system. We go do that maybe, like I said, quarterly, semi-annually. That could be a burden. I could see that being a burden. Probably a lot. In the end, I think we'd pick up a lot less, but there'd be a little bit to manage through the year with that. So I'm open for discussion, I guess, on what everybody thinks.
We're going to let Mike come up now and speak too, but just for the committee people that are here, first, thank you all for coming out tonight. I think I failed to say that. But second, I realize some of you may have just heard a lot of stuff that you didn't know happens, or maybe you thought we had a streets department that did that in addition to Public Works, but Public Works covers a lot of things, from water, sewer, to the leaf and limb, to city cleanup. This conversation all started because city cleanup started to get overwhelming, and we literally use every person from every department for what used to be a week is now a week and a half, approaching 2 weeks, because specifically during COVID, people decided to remodel their houses, and I'm raising my hand too. I was part of that, but it really got to be too much and really revealed the problem we're having. And once we looked at cleanup week, then you started to look at leaf and limb, and you realize it's, as our city's growing and our Public Works department has not really grown to keep up with that, are there better ways to do this? So that's why we're here tonight, and we are going to look for your opinions and options. But again, we're not going to make a decision. So if you don't offer your opinion tonight, don't feel bad. We'll get back to you, and we're still going to have time to talk about this. But we wanted to at least bring you up to speed on what conversations we've now been having as an elected body and the leadership of the city for 3, 4, 5 years now. And it's easy to kick the can down the road, but I think we've reached a point where we really need to make a decision on how we're going to handle this into the future. So with that, I'll invite Mike up to share what he has to say, and then Burley will bring you back up for some more discussion and to answer questions. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Parkowski from Delaware Solid Waste Authority. I've been with DSWA for 19 years, so I've been pretty knowledgeable about the state of Delaware and trash management. I run the recycling departments at DSWA, and we used to run curbside recycling for about 40,000 unincorporated houses in the state. So I have some experience in this matter. I thought that was a very good presentation, and I would would support and say that in the state of Delaware, unincorporated, which I mean subscription-based services, which people in Seaford currently use, pay the most of any other Delaware residents, and the reason for that is there's a lot of unincorporated subscription-based in all 3 counties, but in Sussex County, unfortunately, it's the biggest county, and so there's less density of collection, and when there's less density of collection, it costs more to run a truck, especially when you're running down the street. Say there's 20 houses on the street and you're only picking up 2 of them, so that costs them money to go down every street and collect houses here and there. When you do density of collection, you get a better price. It's pretty well established. So, I mean, that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, less wear and tear on the streets is a definite benefit. Also, less truck emissions. I think those are 2 very clear advantages. I don't want to sugarcoat and say that's all advantages. No, there's disadvantages too, especially for a city if you switch over, obviously you're going to have pushback from the residents, which happens every time there's a change in anything, especially trash. People are very accustomed to their routine. Some people will want to choose who they get to come to their house. Some people will be related to people who work for those companies that didn't win the bid. They are going to be upset. So you're going to have that. But on top of that, there is administrative duties that the town would have, because when a house doesn't get picked up, let's say, or the bulk item, the couch that got left out doesn't get picked up, they're going to call the city. They're not going to call the trash company. So you just have to take that in stride. But I do think the benefits outweigh the negatives on that type of collection. It's been my experience that towns that either collect it themselves with their own people or contract out through a company have the most organized and usually the best system, as opposed to unincorporated, where you have, like I said, these incidents where several trash trucks running down the street every single day, as opposed to one that comes through on a specific day. It really reduces the amount of traffic. So with that, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions about, other parts of the state or just anything about trash or recycling in general that you may have.
Okay. Mike, thank you for being here. Another thing I do want to make sure the public's aware is that we all acknowledge that Cleanup Week is an incredibly well-supported, valued service that we provide to our city. I know for my family, we wait for Cleanup Week, right? It's a big deal. So we're not looking to do away with the service, but how do we change it to keep it going forward to a place where we can afford it and manage it and keep it up? Maybe offer it in a different way, maybe a better way. So maybe a more frequent way. So with that, I guess maybe I'll ask the committee members, since you have volunteered to be here tonight, what questions do you have? Would you mind, do we need to come up to the mic for this? Yes, if you don't mind coming up to the mic, Frank, and just, so that way we have it.
Hi, my name is Frank Raskauskas. Pardon the voice. Blood pressure pills do that. Were you looking to have it so that it would be going out for a single bid for the entire city for private contractor, or to divide it up into sectors and then have it bid in that fashion?
So we're not real sure yet, Mr. Rakouskas. The Director of Public Works and I have been talking through it. We've never written a bid like this, so Burley's done a lot of work. Mr. Mears has done a lot of work with the other communities, but Laurel and Georgetown are not the size of Seaford. I think the ideal thing would be to deal with one vendor, because as Mr. Parkowski said, the city, if we enter into this, is going to receive a lot of complaints. So, but we've got to open that discussion up with the potential vendors to see if they can handle it, to see if one vendor can pick this up. We think so. We haven't had that conversation yet, but there are some very big trash companies out there. And I think this work would be a good contract for them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. This is a very good presentation, by the way. It's very well laid out. It's the first time I'd seen it.
Well, and again, I know for my family that the rates that were showing up there are currently less than what I'm paying. So, to think you could get a service, although it would probably be a change in carriers, which would be different. I can see the senior citizen rate from where I am. I'm not there yet. How about other questions from any of the committee members? Again, you're going to have a chance, and you have all of our emails, so don't, we expect to hear, we want to hear from you. City Council, what's on your mind? What questions or comments do you have that you would, Councilman King?
Well, a question and a comment. When this first rolled out, I personally was a little reluctant. There's a lot of different situations currently going on throughout our city. Some residents share trash cans. Some people prefer to take it to the dump themselves. A lot of different scenarios. Conversation with Burley and Charles around the fact, some conversation around the opting out, put a lot of that to rest. Just a personal note, I was in Disney and we rented an Airbnb a couple months ago, and that entire community was on this program. So, when you get there and you kind of see things sitting around on the street, you're kind of like dumbfounded, like, hey, what's going on here? You got sofas and And so I had conversation with the neighbor and the owner of the Airbnb, who only lived a couple houses down, and, explain that process. So I got to watch that firsthand and have some discussions with people throughout the community, and I can tell you, they loved it. And so getting a better understanding and seeing that firsthand, to me, my opinion is completely a 360-degree turn in the opposite direction. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilman Henderson?
I have a question for Burley. At the beginning of your presentation, you said that leaf and limb would look a little bit different. Would a vendor have a container and all of the items would need to fit in a container?
So, say like Rehoboth, I know that they use a container, but Laurel, they don't use a container. They just bundle it up still at the curb. The requirements keep it a lot smaller, and the contractor just picks it up.
So Laurel was contracted, they're not,
Yeah.
they don't have their own department anymore?
No, they do this.
Okay. If I could make a comment, I'm much more in favor of some sort of modification to the way cleanup week is done, and leaf and limb, because I agree with you, it's out of hand, and it's abused to the nth degree. I think we could take a lot of lessons from our sister city, the town of Blades, and the way that they do their cleanup week. That they have a central pickup point, and I think it could be offered more frequently than having a one-time pickup in the spring, because invariably in May, when you get everything picked up, in 2 weeks' time, somebody's got a sofa on the porch or a sofa out at the curb expecting it to be picked up, and it sits there until the building department does an enforcement action or something happens to it. Someone likes it and takes it, right? So I think most of the constituents that I've spoken with, and even some of that have spoken publicly at some of these workshops, have reiterated to me that they're not in favor of a single trash vendor, even though it gives us some savings. Municipal streets aren't made for 50,000-pound trucks a half a dozen times a week running up and down the streets, and let alone the alleys, because most trash pickup is not done on an alley, it's done at the front curb. So the other thing is that I'd like to maybe not comment, but add to what Mr. Raskowskis had asked was, I'm not in favor of splitting up trash collection into sectors, because you could have different vendors charging different rates in different parts of the city, and then you have a disadvantaged neighborhood that ends up paying the highest rate because because the vendor puts a bid in because they don't want to go to that part of town, or they want to cherry pick the parts of town that they want to go to. So for that reason, I am not for splitting it up. The other thing is that we make ourselves vulnerable to performance. If this single vendor fails, we have a stinky city. We have a real problem with nobody to back up, because if we take the lowest responsible bidder, they have set the lowest price. If you have to go out and find another vendor, they're going to charge you more to be the backup, if they'll even answer the call. So there's a lot of moving parts, and the mayor's right. I mean, this isn't the first one, but I just want to throw a shot across the bow that it's fraught with problems, as far as I'm concerned, as far as single vendor trash pickup for the city.
Councilman McCoy?
Burley, at the beginning of your presentation, you said that the numbers that you have on there, they were generated for our original meeting months ago, and they may have changed since. Have you been given any inclination? I know many services and many products have been raised up recently. Or do you have any insight that you anticipate those numbers rising?
I would say, yeah, just for what you just said, you know, fuel prices, different things, yeah, I'm sure that they've gone up, but, bids typically will lock you into it.
Sure.
Lock you into a price, but, and I'm not sure what fiscal years they run on, but, yeah, I could always get them updated.
I appreciate it, thank you.
I have something else.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Burley, I know you and I talked a little bit at the liaison meeting, just to put that on the record so people watching can hear the answer. So when you send this bid out for trash service, hypothetically saying we go with one vendor, how long would that contract be? So some of the concern is, you know, you lock in with one vendor, right, and then they kind of monopolize the market, and then and then all of a sudden there's a fee adjustment and the rates go up. And as Councilman Henderson alluded, you know, we're stuck with one vendor. So I think if I understood you correctly, in our conversation would probably be a two-year contract, which would, in my opinion, would make it very flexible and make it very competitive. If it's a two-year bid, then you've got other vendors that may have interest in picking that up. And the only other thing, for my purposes, I'm sure there's other cities throughout the entire state of Delaware that are currently on a one vendor process, other than just locally, I would assume.
I would assume, yeah, but I don't know for sure.
Is there ever been a situation like Councilman Henderson alluded to, like where all of a sudden the vendor just said, and maybe he could answer that better.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a situation where a vendor just said, you know, quit and said, hey, we can't do this?
I do know GFL was having some issues up north last year sometime when I was speaking to them during cleanup week. I know the general manager there, and he was just telling me they had a few manpower issues, trying to get employees, things like that. He was saying he thought it might have been more how it was managed at the time.
Sure.
But so they had to struggle and shift around some things. I think they still provided the service. It was just a little bit of a strain for them to get it done.
And I guess with the people throughout our city currently, if you have something you want to throw away, you take it to the curb and they pick it up. If we move this and we isolate this to one area, if a resident doesn't have the ability to move the item, right? Say I've got a sofa, no truck, and we've moved this, I'm just making it up, you know, here at City Hall, what does that look like? Are they just out of luck, or I mean, does the city get involved and has there been some conversation around what that potentially could look like?
I don't think there is an answer for that. I mean, I don't think the city would want to get involved with that, but I hope maybe they would have to have a friend with the truck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Parkowski, do you have anything you'd like to add to what you've seen throughout the state that would help?
Yeah, I've have a lot of experience with contracts, and one of the things that you talked about, the length of time, obviously that's your option, but a lot of times a 2-year or a 2+1 where the city would have a 3rd-year option is a really good incentive for people to bid on. There's 3 very large trash companies in Delaware that would all be very interested in bidding on a city the size of Seaford. You are the largest municipality that does not contract out or do it themselves. City of Wilmington, you know, they use their own workers, but obviously they're the largest city. But there's cities bigger than Seaford that actually do contract out, and the performance is so I'll just give a quick, Kent County has trash districts, so it's bid on a county level. So they went with a company that was from out of state that had come in, and it was the last year of that contract, and they were failing. And so they had a performance bond in their bid that allowed them to hire another company to come in and finish that contract out, and the old company had to pay for it. So there's ways to ensure that you don't get stuck. It has happened before in Delaware. In the 19 years I've been at DSW, there's never been a trash crisis where someone got left holding the bag. There's always been willingness by one of the big three companies to come in and take that over because that's what they do. I mean, and they have the manpower to do it.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, would you like to come up to the mic? And I know you don't, but
Has there been an ROI done to see if the city of Seaford could do it themselves?
No, we've never studied that. The investment initially is quite high. Obviously, the cost of a truck, I can't estimate it now, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And our experience with equipment, Burley's much better at equipment. You can't just buy one trash truck because they break down and everything. So just in equipment, you're maybe $500,000, $1 million to even enter into it. But no, we have not done an analysis of that, of doing it ourselves and hiring the people. One thing I have heard is that this is a difficult job that people have to do, so you can have a lot of injuries on the job, so your workers' comp and your things like that really need to be studied as well. So in cases like that, we found we're so small, it's best for us to contract with people. That's just kind of our niche when we do big construction projects or anything like that. We don't own an excavator, so we hire a contractor that has that equipment.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question.
and the last thing we'd want to do is take it over and raise rates on people than what they're currently paying or what the private sector could do it for. But that's a great point. Other questions or comments? Councilman Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. This has come up in the past, and it's always been very difficult to, hear both sides. From the constituents, I've heard, hey, we like the service that we have. We're used to it. But at the same time, we've also, when I've gone around and talked to people, they'd say, hey, we want a cleaner city. And I think that this is a step closer to having a cleaner city, both inside the home and outside of the home. It's, I'm still tough decision.
All right, any other questions or comments? If not, really would appreciate it if you would all go home and think about it, and I would also say to the people online that we want to hear from everybody. So if you have a thought or a comment or a question, maybe we can put the email address up or something so that we can hear from you. But again, Cleanup Week is a big piece of our community. It's a valued piece. People love it. And for a long time, I think our employees enjoyed doing it because it gave them the opportunity to go door to door and see people back when it was a manageable process. But as our city has grown and things, we've got to look at doing it differently. I just, for me personally, the curbside pickup is the value-added service that I want to see us continue. I think it's a service that fits the needs of seniors or people without a pickup truck. And I would love to see the service offered a lot more frequently instead of people having to store up stuff all year long. And you know how Cleanup Week is in our city these days. It's not only people putting stuff out, it's the collectors coming through and sorting through the garbage and making a mess. So, but change is difficult. It's never easy. These decisions are never as simple as it looks like on paper. And there's emotions always involved, but that's what we're here to do. And I want to thank all of you for, number one, volunteering for the committees you do volunteer for. We do appreciate that. But again, your input on this matter will help us make the best and most wise decision for our community. If any decision would be made, cleanup in 2023, Cleanup Week will remain the same this year. We don't have time to change anything this year, so this year it'll be just as it's always been, but we'd love to have a decision shortly following after that, our path forward, which will take some time to put all this together if we decide to make a change. So please give us your feedback, good or bad. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you. Good night. Thank you for being here.